morning, everybody. Excellent. Good morning. Thank you for having me here today. I'm very proud to represent Delta and happy to speak with you about how network planners make decisions and what you can do to influence the outcome of those decisions. So the first question we'll ask is very high level. How does an airline grow? Well, there's really two ways. The first one is I can find a way to serve a new market that Delta doesn't serve today. That could be a new Caribbean island, it could be a new city in China, anywhere that Delta is not serving today. And that could be served by someone else, one of my competitors may be in that market, or maybe it's a market that nobody serves at all. And you'll see a lot of those developing in China, markets that aren't served by any traditional airline. The second way that airlines grow is by moving share in existing markets. And when I talk about moving share, I mean from another airline onto Delta. I can do that by either adding frequencies in existing markets, or I can upgauge the size of the aircraft in an existing market. And to put in perspective, 1% of the U.S. industry revenue share is worth well over $1 billion. So shifting share is a very big business. From the network planning perspective, we look at market selection and schedule drivers. So what are the things that the planners are going to consider when they decide, do I want to fly this new service? We'll do our own flight profitability forecast. We'll look at the fleet and the regional constraints. We'll look at aircraft rotations, network optimization, and any industry developments that might impact the new service. But my job as a network planner is to maximize Delta's profitability through optimizing the network. That's what I get paid to do. When I look at profitability forecasting, I've got a wealth of data. I have more data than anybody in the world could ever need. It talks about, I've got internal data that gives me my own profitability, what Delta's costs are, what my advanced bookings are, how I can look at one market and draw parallels to another market. That's all my internal data. I also have external data. I've got competitive schedules. I know who's flying when and what time of the year and what size their aircraft is. I've got some way old competitive data, over 9 to 12 months old. I can look at what my competitors' load factors were. I can see what their average fare in a particular market is. I have access to all that information. When I forecast, I need to look at the risks. A risk in a forecast will be if I assume that costs are going to remain the same. That's a huge risk. Fuel costs can escalate or decelerate. I don't have visibility to that when I do my forecast. Other risks are competitive action. Is the complexity of your market, is it comprised of business traffic? Is it leisure traffic? What does your market look like? What's your GDP forecast? Is your market growing? Is your market shrinking? All of that's going to be incorporated into my route forecast. And then I determine, is the market assessment positive? There we go. So profitability is the main criteria for determining what market I'm going to serve, but there's also other things that play into it. You've got the forecasted performance. I look at the historical demand. Is your market trending up or trending down? I look at economic growth. Well, we talked about GDP growth, how important that is. I look at my competitive position. There's times where I'll add service in a market because I need to compete vigorously with somebody else who's done something in that market. I'll look at your passenger profile, business, leisure, visiting friends and relatives. What type of traffic can I expect in this market? And I'll look at sales agreements. If my sales team is coming to me and saying, I need service to this market because all of my contracts are asking to go to Brazil. They're asking to go to somewhere in specific that Delta doesn't serve. That's a very important component of whether we serve a market. And then I look at community and airport partnership. And that's a very important part. We don't do a lot of advertising at Delta on a route-specific basis, but we partner with our destinations to market destinations we serve. And this is true throughout the Caribbean especially. I have relationships with a lot of people, both in this room and with your airport people, with your director of sales, with your director of marketing. And those are the people that we work with to make sure that routes perform well. Those are all the things that weigh the scale on the good side. The things on the other side. If a market is on the tipping point for me and I'm offered a 3-month landing fee abatement, that's not going to carry much weight. If you tell me you'll put it in your local newsletter, that's not going to carry much weight. And my favorite is if you tell me, if you fly it, I know it will be full. That's not going to carry much weight. We look at operational constraints, and this is just a little bit of the puzzle that you have to put together when you look at a new route. While each individual component of the operational constraints are not huge, as I go through this list of things that constrain me, they narrow down what aircraft and what time I can fly. So if I look at a market that I want to serve from JFK to the Caribbean, that aircraft in particular is going to need to have life vests, it needs to have life rafts, it needs to have dual HF radio because I want to fly the most efficient pattern. And every time I add a constraint, it narrows down the number of aircraft I have in my fleet that I can serve that market with. So if from a JFK airport, I would have probably 2 different aircraft types in Delta's fleet to serve a Caribbean market. And when I look at those 2 aircraft types, they're all doing something right now. So I've got to understand, is my new opportunity better than what those aircraft are doing now? That's the question that we have to answer. In some cases it is, and in some cases it's not. But those constraints all build a layer of complexity into the forecast. We talk about industry developments. We look at GDP growth, and then I look at airline capacity, airline industry as a whole. So when I look at Latin Caribbean capacity, and this is a snapshot from March of 2014 compared to March of 2013, you'll see how industry capacity is somewhat aligned with GDP, but not really. When you look at Europe, Europe is up 8%, but the Europe economy, the GDP forecast, is only up 2%. So that tells me, as Delta, I probably don't want to drop a bunch of capacity into Europe. It already has a lot of capacity growth in the coming year. You try and match this as you look ahead and understand where do you have the greatest opportunity to make money. So here's my favorite part. How can you influence my decision as a planner? I will give you a piece of advice that says make a relationship with your network planners. Whichever airline you decide you want service from, build that relationship. The network planner people, we're the data geeks. We're not people. It may not be easy for you to build a relationship with us. We're the ones that walk around with binders, and if they still make pencil protectors, we probably still have them. But you want to build that relationship. The routes venues that operate through the course of the year, the global routes just happened in Las Vegas this year. There's also a Routes Americas. That's a good opportunity for you to build a relationship and make an introduction, go talk to the people from the carriers you want service from, and then follow that up with a phone call. Don't be a pest, don't call them once a week, but once a quarter. Go there and tell them things they don't know. If you tell me what you think my P&Ls will be, that's one piece of information, but I'm going to do my own forecast. What I need to know from you and your folks are things that are more intangible, things I don't have access to. What's hotel growth doing on your island? Do you have a new medical facility that's going to draw visitors worldwide? Things that I wouldn't know, but I depend on your folks to tell me. The other piece we can do here is, can you mitigate an airline's risk? And I'm sure everyone here is familiar with risk sharing, revenue guarantees, whatever header you want to call it. But that is one option. There's others. I've got a lot of creative ways that we partner with our destinations. The thing you need to keep in mind is that the airline wants to partner with you as long as the route you're proposing makes sense within my strategic direction. I mean, I'm not going to fly to your destination from one of my competitors' hubs. That's not going to work for Delta. But when you're talking about service from Atlanta, from JFK, it's a market I don't serve. It's a market where I serve maybe only on Saturday, but you want more days a week. Those are the things we can talk about, and we can partner in how to make those things work.